All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a story that is about to send some major ripples through the global economy. And believe it or not, it all comes down to one metal: silver. That's a pretty intense statement, right? But it really captures just how high the stakes are. We're talking about a single policy change that's set to create a shockwave, and it's all kicking off in just a few days. So, what's actually going on? Okay, so it all begins with this very deliberate move by China. It's a decision that's creating a brand new squeeze on a resource that, as we're about to see, the entire world completely depends on. And here's the deal. Starting January 1st, China is basically putting its massive silver supply under lock and key. They're rolling out these super restrictive export licenses, and the reality is, most international companies just aren't going to be able to get them. Now, you really have to appreciate the scale we're talking about here. This is not some minor player making a small move. China controls up to 70% of the world's silver. So when a country with that much power decides to turn off the tap, well, everyone is going to feel it. So, why are they doing this? Well, it's not random at all. It's a very calculated strategic play. Just think about it for a second. China makes over 80% of the world's solar panels and a massive chunk of its electric cars. Both of those industries are incredibly hungry for silver. So by shutting down exports, China can feed its own factories first, get cheaper prices for its own companies, and, you guessed it, gain some serious leverage over a resource the rest of the world desperately needs. And that really brings us to the big question, right? It's just silver. For jewelry, maybe some fancy spoons. Well, the truth is way, way more complicated. And frankly, a lot more important to our daily lives than most of us realize. So let's pull back the curtain on this invisible metal, because we're about to see that its real value has almost nothing to do with how shiny it is, and everything to do with what it can do. I mean, just look at this list. It is absolutely staggering. Every single smartphone, car, and solar panel needs silver. Every circuit board, every electrical switch uses it. It's totally essential for building out 5G networks, and it's even a key ingredient in the next generation of solid-state batteries. It's no joke to say that our entire modern world runs on this stuff. So, why is it in everything? Well, it all boils down to one simple fact of physics. Silver is the most conductive metal on the entire planet. It's even better than gold or copper. So when you're talking about high-tech stuff where every ounce of efficiency matters, there is literally no substitute for its ability to move electricity. Now, this is where China's new policy goes from being just a problem to a potential crisis. See, this move isn't happening in some perfectly balanced market. The world was already using way more silver than it could produce. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Take a look at these numbers for 2025. The world needs 1.24 billion ounces of silver every year, but the global supply is only 1 billion ounces. We're already running a deficit of almost 250 million ounces a year, and that's before the world's biggest supplier decides to basically stop selling. So why not just, mine more? Well, you'd think so, but it's not that simple. See, most silver, we're talking up to 80% of it, doesn't come from dedicated silver mines. It's a byproduct. You get it when you're actually mining for other things like copper and lead. So you can't just flick a switch and decide to ramp up silver production by itself. And hey, even if you did find a huge pure silver deposit, just look at this timeline. It takes a minimum of 12 to 15 years to get a new mine up and running. This is not a short-term problem with a quick fix. This supply gap is a long-term structural issue. So, you've got this soaring demand on one side and a supply that's getting squeezed even tighter on the other. The obvious question for a lot of people is, what's going to happen to the price? Let's take a look at the arguments. Okay, so you've got two camps here. On one hand, the argument for higher prices is pretty straightforward. Industrial demand isn't going anywhere, the supply is getting choked off, and investors love precious metals when inflation is a concern. But there are real risks. A big global slowdown could crush manufacturing demand. China could always change its mind and ease up. Or, companies could get so desperate that they pour money into finding cheaper workarounds. Investors have this little trick they use called the gold to silver ratio. It's just a simple way to see how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold. When that ratio gets really high, like around 80, it's a sign that silver might be cheap. If it's low, around 45, maybe gold is the better buy. Right now, it's sitting around 60, which is considered pretty normal, historically speaking.
And just to give you some perspective, while silver's price has definitely gone up, it's not exactly in crazy, uncharted territory. Way back in 1980, silver had a peak of $50 an ounce. If you adjust that for all the inflation since then, it would be like paying over $150 today. So today's prices are a big deal, but we've seen this kind of level before, and then some.
But honestly, just thinking about this as an investment or a trade really misses the much, much bigger story. What's happening is that silver is transforming from just another commodity into something way more important. And this quote from the source material absolutely nails it. Silver is now a strategic industrial bottleneck, a choke point. Whoever controls the silver controls a critical piece of future technology production. That completely changes how we need to think about this. Here's the key thing to understand. There are these huge, unstoppable global trends that are creating a permanent new floor for silver demand. I'm talking about the worldwide push for electrification, the EV revolution, the insane growth of AI data centers, and the entire green energy transition. All of these things are completely dependent on a growing supply of silver. And this is really the bottom line. For decades, the price of silver was often pushed around by investors, by speculation, by market hype. That might be changing for good. Its price could now be set not by traders on a screen, but by the very real, very desperate need from manufacturers who literally cannot build their products without it. Which leaves us with a pretty big question. We've seen just how essential this metal is, and now we're seeing a major world's power tighten its grip on the supply. So you have to wonder, is this quiet, global race for silver going to define who wins the next decade of technology? Thanks for tuning in.